All right, so excited for today's discussion. For our panel discussion today, we have Corby Adams as Senior Program Manager at the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College Next Education Workforce Initiative located at Arizona State University. And correction, Corby, new name, Mary Lou Fulton College of Teaching and Learning Innovation. We're really excited to have you here today. Corby creates pathways and programs for home and community educators to engage in supporting learners and is going to share more about ways this initiative is supporting your work in districts and actually building capacity at no cost to you. So we're really excited to have you here today, Corby. John is joining us. John Bird is the assistant principal at Keensburg High School in Keensburg, New Jersey. Keensburg's initiative was recently featured in an Edutopia magazine, and we saw that, and we thought, gosh, that is a really sound 3-year implementation in year 3, and we're going to hear more from John about that journey shortly. And we also have Colleen Cable. She's the director of student retention and recovery for Minneapolis Public Schools, where she's been leading the district's student retention strategy and supports for over 20 years, actually. And earlier this school year, because you're never done trying new things, Minneapolis Public Schools launched actually student-led attendance teams at 14 elementary, middle, high schools with the goal of empowering students to actively participate in this process and to positively impact school-wide climate, of course, daily attendance, and overall well-being of their students. And of course, I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Bob Belfans, the Distinguished Professor and Director at the Everyone Graduate Center at Johns Hopkins University. Bob's going to go ahead and facilitate today's discussion. You ready, Bob?
I'm ready.
All right,
All right.
I'm handing over.
Thank you, Jen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here with this panel. We know that the challenges that chronic absenteeism are presenting us in our schools are big. Just the scale and intensity of the challenge is much greater than most of us have had to deal with before. But we also know that our capacity for local innovation and insight is also large. And it's really, we're really trying with this, our learning network here to, help us learn together and from each other. And I'm really excited by the 3 panelists we have here today, which are really good examples of this local innovation and the way that we can find ways to deal with the scale and intensity of the challenges we find. So we're going to go through, ask them each to tell us just a brief overview of what we're doing. Then we'll get into a little bit of a dialogue about what they're learning and what their next steps are. Um, so the first one, we're going to turn to our friends in Minneapolis Public Schools and Colleen. And as Jen said, this is a really example of that. We know one of the underused assets we have in our efforts to keep kids in school every day and engaged are the kids themselves, or our students are themselves. They are an underused asset in both us understanding why they're not there, but even more importantly, on what it would take to get them there every day and to be focused and engaged. So we're going to start with Colleen, and this is also an early stage program, which is the thing we wanted to highlight, that there's a lot to learn even from a program when it's just starting. It's not always about once it's done. So Colleen, welcome, and just share with us a little bit about what your student attendance teams are doing and learning.
Great, thank you so much. So Minneapolis is fortunate enough to be part of a 12-district pilot in our state. So last spring, our state legislators gave 12 school districts funds to create some innovative ideas to address student attendance. So in Minneapolis, we're addressing attendance at all 3 tiers, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And I'm most excited to be talking about Tier 1 here today, which is our student-led attendance teams. So we have 14 schools at all grade levels that are implementing student-led attendance teams. So from the youngest voice, you're never too little to have input, to our schools that not only have high school students, but have our high school alternative schools, I should say, our alternative high schools. So we've got voice from students who have been somewhat engaged to very little engaged. When our teams were put together, it was done voluntarily. So the all call went out to principals that we were going to do student-led attendance teams, asking for volunteers. And we got more than enough volunteers pretty quickly. The target number was 14, and we got to that number. And at the schools, it's typically the school social worker, the school counselor, we've got some support staff, and we've got 1 teacher that are facilitating the teams. But we really want the students to lead the way. And so the facilitators selected students either by having students volunteer, putting out a message, asking students who's interested. Some of them went to teaching staff and said, is there somebody you would recommend? And then others did nominations. So the groups are about 8 to 20 students. We want all grade bands and all grade levels represented as best possible. That got a little tricky at the elementary level. I was talking to the facilitators earlier this week at our quarterly meeting. And what is something really fun that's happening at the elementary level, it's fourth and fifth graders that are part of the team, and they are reaching out to the little ones in different ways. So the kindergarten through third grade. So some of them are preparing presentations, and they're going into classrooms to present about attendance. And I'm really excited to see some of those presentations as we get into third quarter here. They've been working on the preparation of that. So that could be role playing. It could be doing posters. We're just doing presentations to the younger grades. At the middle school level, students are looking at attendance buddies. They're looking at data. They're doing some critical thinking about attendance, about the school climate, the sense of belonging, what brings students into school, what keeps them away. I will say the students chosen had an attendance range of about 80 to 90%. We want students that are there often enough to participate, but have missed enough to be of concern and really have some empathy and understanding of what might keep you away from school or take you away from school. At the high school level, they're really integrating their work into classroom curriculum as well. One of the things we've been trying to do at the high school level is to work with our teachers so that students could get some extra credit for participating. So they're looking at attendance data. One of our facilitators actually pulled up some news pieces where our local news stations had done reporting on student attendance. And that was really fun because, for one, their district was highlighted, but many of them were completely unaware that the community was interested in student attendance. They don't watch the local news. They don't read the local paper. And it was like, what? People care about this? This was on our local news on a couple of stations. So really, I think that energized them. And the students are meeting weekly to bi-weekly. One school has a pattern where they're meeting every 2 weeks and then off a week and then every 2 weeks and off. So they kind of were trying to pull students for the meetings in a way that's least disruptive to classroom work as possible. So they're doing rotating schedules. At the elementary level, they're primarily using lunchtime for their meetings. But we're really excited just to have their voice at the table. I will say our district, like many districts, has relied on school climate surveys for many, many years to get voice of our students. And I think many students we would hear in the buildings didn't know what that information went to. What are you going to do? Why are you asking me these questions? I never see any results. And what we want students to know is their voice values. And not only are we going to ask for it, we're going to listen, and you're going to help us implement change so that our students see themselves as change makers, not just people giving opinions or sharing information, but they are part of what facilitates change in our buildings and really in our communities. We're looking at ways, how do we get into our neighborhoods to work with neighborhood associations on support in getting students to school, recognizing our youth when they're walking through or using public transportation in their neighborhood, and welcoming them and letting them know that school attendance is important, that you're an important member of our community. Very little funding went into this program. So with our state dollars, we're using $1,000 stipend for each facilitator. And that was based on, I'm asking for probably 30 to 60 minutes a week extra, so above their normal workday throughout the school year. And then each attendance team gets $600. And that's really up for the student team to decide how we're going to learn it. There was only one ask, and that is that the students themselves on the team get some reward, if you will, or just acknowledgement of their time. So some of the staff are bringing in treats, or every once a month they're buying lunch for them. So just a little something from those dollars for the student leaders. And then students are using it. Some of the students want to do contests in their building, so they're going to use it as rewards. Some of them are using it to buy art supplies so that they can do posters. And some of them aren't quite sure how they're going to spend the money yet, which is fine because we really want them to be thoughtful and have time to think about it. I will say, as they came together, we want before they do anything, we want them to feel established as a team. We want them to feel that they are trusted, that they trust one another, that their voice matters, and they're going to make a difference. And that is not pressing them, not pushing them, but asking them to use the information we're sharing, look at what's happening in their building and in their community, and help guide the work. So really trying to make this as student-led as possible. I did provide a rolling agenda that the teams could use, or they could create their own, so that students understand this is a team meeting. This is serious. This is business. This is why we're meeting weekly or biweekly, because it matters, and the importance of taking notes and how to generate ideas and keep track of ideas. So I think that's kind of a. Oh,
Yep.
I will mention just one other thing really quickly. When I met with
Yep.
facilitators and they were sharing information, one of our alternative schools is for teen moms, and they don't have sports teams or a lot of other extra activities there. And one of the things they decided to do, there's a real interest in volleyball at their school. The girls really want to play volleyball. They don't have a team. They don't have funding for it. So part of what they're using their money for is they're going to create an in-house volleyball team based on attendance and academic performance.
Wow. That's wonderful. Colleen, thank you so much. That is a amazing student voice initiative, and we're going to circle back and ask you some questions in a minute. But just want to commend you that it's a pilot in a way, but it's a pilot of significance when you're launching in 14 schools across all grade levels. So again, I think it's a nice example of how this idea of local innovation, that we can have a pretty bold idea and actually stand it up and learn a lot from it. So thank you. We're now going to turn to our friends, John from Keensburg High School in New Jersey. And this is really an example of we talk about it in the research of where, school districts make the bigger difference. And it is having this sort of multi-tiered comprehensive strategy and staying with it over time, recognizing this is not something that like in 3 months you'll be implemented, done, and can call it a day. It takes sustained work to see the full fruits of your efforts. So, John, just give us a little overview of what you guys are up to and what you've learned and what you've accomplished.
Sure. Hi, everyone. How are you? So 3 years ago, myself and Mr. Brophy, who's our principal, took over. We both came into administration at the same time. And we knew we were coming into a bit of a tough situation in that we were targeted by the state for intervention, school in need of intervention. And that was based on our attendance or chronic absenteeism, our graduation rate, and our test scores. So, we knew we had to begin kind of chipping away at that. And the way we decided to first attack it was through the absenteeism piece, because we felt like the other two pieces couldn't come along if we couldn't get students in school, right? So we had always been a school. We're a suburban school, but kind of with a somewhat urban demographic. Definitely the problems of an urban school, and for the last, I don't know, 15 years, we've probably been around 30 to 35% chronic absenteeism. Coming out of the pandemic, we hit 40% the year before myself and Sean took over. So at that time, we only had 3 things in place. We had 10-day meetings with students, 15-day meetings with students and their parents, and then summonses to court for students that were over 20 or 25 absences. Those were the only 3 things that were being done to combat attendance. And to us, we weren't really making it, part of our culture to be present in school. So we started in the first year with what we call our tier 1 interventions. We started having conversations at all class meetings, every parent meeting, every back to school night, every graduation meeting about attendance and, the 18-day threshold, the possibility of credit withdrawal. We are a high school, I should say that. So at 18 days, students can't get credit in their class. And just started making this something that was important, educating students about what is and isn't an excused absence. And it wasn't at first well received. The initial thought was, well, I'm sick, especially coming out of COVID. Why aren't these days excused? And we had to educate students to understand 18 is a lot, right? That's 2 days out a month at least. So at that point, we did the kind of the information spreading. Another way we did Attendance Works is was a huge resource for us. We took some of their posters and whatnot, put them in the hallway, and then also they have postcards. So we would send out virtual postcards using the Talking Points app. Talking Points is a great resource because it translates into a family's spoken language at home. They actually just recently updated it to if you attach a flyer to a text message, it will translate the flyer to the student's home language. So we use that app to send out information, just basically how important attendance is, especially at the beginning of the year, coming out of breaks and times like that, right? So those were the things that we kind of put in place our first year. We felt like it was easy enough to do, and we could start spreading the idea of the importance of this. With that, we in that first year we reduced absenteeism 10%. So we were down to 30%, right? Which was basically our pre-pandemic average. So we felt good about that, but we knew we needed to go further. So our second year, we introduced what we at the time used for tier 3, which we called our Tighten Connect program. So the program was based on a combination of Check and Connect out of the University of Minnesota, which was a teacher mentorship program for students that were absent often. Text Connect, which was a program in Connecticut that had some success texting parents. And then kind of the third part of it that became this hybrid was prior to being in administration, I was a teacher and I was a football coach, and we would use Remind 101 all the time to communicate to students things that they needed to know. What jersey they're wearing, when practices, fundraisers, whatever it may be. And I knew that, our other extracurriculars did as well. Spanish club would text and say, our meeting is so-and-so. And I kind of never understood why we didn't use such things for academic purposes, right? We would send emails, but they often get lost. We would text or call parents and say, hey, your student's absent or they've been absent a lot. But we were never directly reaching out to students to say, you're absent, we need you in school. How can we get you here, kind of thing. So we merged those 3 programs together, right, and came up with this Tighten Connect program. And that's kind of what the slide shows.
Please stop by the main office. Kayla Noble, please stop at the main. There you are. Never mind.
Excuse me. So what Tighten Connect was, basically at the beginning of the year, I talked to teachers. I said, if anybody has 10 minutes a day to kind of help students get to school more often, consider volunteering. We had 11 teachers that decided to participate in the program. And then I started talking to the students, right? And any student, and we had kids that were 15 days absent to students that I think our highest was 172 days absent, right? Which means they made 13 days of school the previous year. And we talked to them, and if their reasoning was around apathy, or I just can't get up, or I'm not really so interested in school, anything that wasn't like a severe mental health issue or something like that, we asked them to be part of the program. So initially we asked 50 students The idea being that we want to cap numbers at 5 students per teacher volunteer. Of the 50 students we asked, 33 said yes. And basically what we would do is the teacher would set up Reminds 101. We would get the students' phone numbers, parent permission, obviously, and then every single morning the teacher would text message the student with some kind of positive text message. So, looking forward to seeing you at school today. State testing is this week. It's really important you're here. We have a pep rally today. It's going to be a great day. Or if a student missed, they would text them and say, "We've really missed you yesterday. Hope you'll be here today." So we did this throughout the entirety of the year. Our teachers reported that they did text message about 70% of the time or so. Most of them said it really wasn't that hard. Some were able to set the messages on Sunday. Others just made it part of their morning routine. And what we saw was that we had 50% of the students in the program who increased their attendance. We had 2 students that they had bigger issues occur. One was through suspensions and another was mental health, right? So take those 2 out. And then we had one student that actually had the exact same number of absences. And then we had 13 that got worse by a day or 20, For us, because we're a small school, those 10 students made a big difference, right? That's about 4% reduction in chronic absenteeism for us. The really cool part for me was 2 things. One, the teachers, so all the teachers got interviewed after. The teachers said that it really led to really good mentorship between them and the students. So in my head, I thought the text message was just going to get the student moving again to school. What the teachers reported actually was that that started conversations with students they otherwise wouldn't have conversations with, and led to a more effective mentorship opportunity where they were able to, be in class with or be in school, see them in school, continue the conversation from the text message, and then really get into creating a relationship for the students. The second thing that I thought was pretty cool was there were some unintended consequences. So, for instance, one student reported they had ADHD, and in the morning they had a very hard time getting out the front door. They would get very caught up in different things. That student reported the ding of their phone would reset them and get them focused back on going out the door. One teacher reported that she was talking with the student in class about this program, and I guess the student said, "Well, you're going to text me tomorrow?" And she said, "Yeah." And 2 other kids said, "What are you talking about?" She told them. They joined the program completely on their own, and they hadn't even been identified prior. And I think what's really important is that relationship part of it, because what we saw, those 15 students that had increased their attendance from the previous year were our low income students, our free and reduced lunch students, almost 15 for 15. So it's the student that maybe goes home and parents are working, or they're babysitting siblings, or they have any of the other consequences that sometimes poverty brings. Those were the students that did best in the program. I probably have to look at this year to see if that correlation continues, but that was definitely what happened this year. So with that program and the continuation of Tier 1 and Tier 2, we again reduced chronic absenteeism about 8%. So we're currently lower than we were at any point in the last decade prior to the pandemic. So now going into year 3, we're continuing the program. We did a little different this year. We went off this year's attendance numbers instead of a previous year. We're actually trying to use it more as a Tier 2 intervention, kind of preventative. We're bringing kids into the program that have 6, 7, 8 absences currently. and we're going to see how it goes. You know, the goal is national average around 16%. If we could get there, um, I think we already have a little bit of a win, but I think that's a tremendous win if we can get to that level.
Thank you, John. That's a marvelous example on a couple of levels. One is how you took sort of evidence-based ideas from other places, but then blended them and customized them to your situation, plus your own insights about like the use of the remind approach. And then also just how you guys every year are sort of modulating, right, to the shifting circumstances and sort of continual improvement. So really, really great examples on both those regards. We're going to now turn to our third example before we finish with some Q&A for everybody. But our third example is our friends from Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, Corby. And here's really one of the things we talk about is the need to often create strategic partnerships to help schools deal with the capacity challenge of like many, many chronically absent kids and only so many adults, or both how you get additional adults and also how you build the capacity of the adults you have to be things like mentors and success coaches and so forth. So Corby, we turn it over to you to learn about your efforts to sort of help schools build their capacity to enable their students to be in school every day and be focused and engaged.
Thank you. I'm really excited to share this with all of you because I think this is a resource and something that hopefully will really be complementary to the work that all of you are doing in your schools to build plans and create really consistent methodologies around how you're supporting student attendance in your schools. And then, being in a college of education, we're really thinking a lot about how we can share the really specific knowledge and expertise and research-backed supports around that educators and teachers know with more people in our community so that everyone can be a part of supporting the work of positive attendance support in schools. Something that we've created at our college is the Community Educator Learning Hub, and that is a platform for asynchronous learning for community members, classified staff, paraeducators to help support upskilling in the foundational skills of teaching and learning across lots of different specific skill sets. And in particular, we have a whole set of courses that are about student success coaching and really thinking about what are the skills necessary for people to be able to support positive relationship building, attendance solutions, and really growth mindset with students. All of the things that are skills people need once students have moved through some of your plans that you've created around getting children back into the building, that then those pieces around positive youth development and relationship building really need to be in place so that young people are engaged and connected and continue to stay in the school building and continue to come to school. So I'm excited to share this with you today. If we jump to the next slide, within our Community Educator Learning Hub, we have a whole set of courses in particular that are for people that want to gain the skills of student success indicators and really thinking about the research-backed supports that are that all of you have been building into your plans, but how do we train people to be able to build those skills? And so I think this really aligns with what Jen was sharing earlier in those 4 areas of support that you're building into your comprehensive plans around this like area 4 of aligning resources that training is something that takes a lot of time and capacity, and all of you are doing that in different ways across your schools. We have training that could be shared with all of you so that you can use your capacity elsewhere and turn that training over to us to be able to support your adults that are helping to build attendance. So in collaboration with our partners at City Year, we have created 12 courses that are really specifically around those particular skill sets. If we move to the next slide, you can get a peek into what the particular courses are. Our nano courses are built around really short bursts of knowledge. So they're about 15 to 20 minutes long. They're very interactive. They have lots of visuals. And so they're really engaging for people to be able to learn one skill and then come back when they have time to learn another skill. So we have a set of courses around course performance. So really looking at growth mindset and how to look at course data so that people can know when students need support, student relationship building and trust and engagement, a whole other set of courses around social emotional and well-being. So really thinking about building resilience, school connectedness and belonging, relationship and adult support. These are all things that I'm sure you're building into your comprehensive plans around attendance. And so hopefully this could be something that helps to build capacity with your adults and the people in your building to be able to implement those plans. And then a whole set of courses around really particular skills of supporting student attendance. So really getting in some of the more specific plan creation and skills needed to enact and create those plans. So we're really excited about this because we've recently teamed up with the Leon Lowenstein Foundation to be able to offer this training to student success coaches or people supporting attendance solutions in schools and organizations at no cost. And so this is a resource that is open access and available to all of you, should this be something that is interesting to you to couple with your training. And again, we're really thinking about this as something that is hopefully a capacity builder for you, that as you're building your plans and aligning your resources, that this could be something that helps to support and deepen the comprehensive plans that you're building, and to help to do those next steps once students are back and engaged in the building. That then how are you making sure that they're remaining connected and that they're building those positive relationships with adults that are helping them to stay in a school. Oh, and then this last slide. The website is currently being built, but it's going to be launched tomorrow. So registration will open tomorrow, and we'll put the link in the follow-up email.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Corby. So just let me take a moment to tie these three together, and then I'm going to ask all our panelists one really quick concluding question, so we can get to our everyone else sharing their successes in our breakouts. So, think about how some of these things connect. So in the Keensburg High School, they're having teachers play this sort of attendance champion, coach, mentor role. Sometimes they're called success mentors. Sometimes they're called success coaches. And sometimes they're like, I love to do this, but I need I don't know quite how to do everything. And, these are these very short 10 to 12, 15-minute nano courses they can take on specific things that will help them in that area they need help in, right? Not a full curriculum necessarily. They can dive in and out. And then with Colleen and her work, right? She's saying, we're going to have these students, they're going to bring up things like, we need more room, more connectedness in our school, or more belonging in our school, or we need more activities. And it's like, okay, but we might have to train our teachers on how to do that. And then even some of these short courses could work for those teachers. Just take the short thing on belonging, on connectedness. And it's not all you need, but it gets you going, right? And gets them excited and makes them feel like they're not without support. So I think there's a way that all of these efforts really tie together. So my quick concluding question for this wonderful panel, because we are really trying to build up each other's capacity here, is what's a quick lesson you learned in doing your work to date, that you think would help somebody else who's trying to? That's a great idea. I think I want to try it too. Is there a short lesson or a short insight that you've learned the hard way, that you could share out with folks and say, if you start doing this, just make sure you pay attention to this, something like that? So Colleen, we'll start with you to put you on the spot.
Well, what comes to mind, first of all, when I wrote this out, I put the message out to principals when they returned after summer break on August 1st. And I quickly got the reply from principals to fill up all the spots. And then the next question was, who's going to be your facilitator? Who's going to take the lead to get these students' teams built and then, run seriously? And then there was some hesitation, like, I hate to ask people to put more on their plate. But when those principals put it out to their staff, people stepped up. And I think sometimes we don't realize people really do want to step up. And I think that goes to John too, with the mentors. You ask people for something something reasonable. You make it clear how it can have an impact. You also make it clear to me this was a joyful thing. This can be something really fun. And we need more laughter in our classrooms. Our students, these are really serious days for them, and to make it joyful. And our staff stepped up to the plate. We really had no problem filling the positions. So I'd say don't hesitate. Don't overthink that you're asking too much, because people want to be helpers, especially in our business.
Wonderful. Thank you. John?
Yeah, so I think first to kind of piggyback on that, one of the questions we did ask our mentors at the end was, if you had been paid for it, would it have made a difference? And while they all said they would have loved the extra money, they all said no, we'd still do it anyway. They really saw the value in it and helping other students. To answer your question, for me, it goes back to something that I think is as old as school, right? And that's relationships really do matter. And I think it's something we lose track of sometimes. But I'm sure everybody watching this, right, is in education because they had some relationship along the way. And what we found was that, a program where I thought just a message would get somebody moving. Instead, it was the relationship that the message is built that really got kids coming, to school more regularly. So for me, it's that, and it's focusing on that going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Corby, bring us home.
Yeah, I think building on what both Colleen and John shared, the relationships are really important. And I think that we can, think broadly about who has strong relationships with kids in a building and outside of a building, that there's lots of staff members besides teachers who have relationships with kids, and that expertise can be tapped to help us to build that belonging and connectedness across the school building. And so thinking about who are the organizations coming in after school, who are your coaches, who are your office staff or your janitors, who are having relationships, positive youth development relationships with kids that are maybe an opportunity to strengthen, so we can all be a part of the attendance solution.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I really want to commend you on your wonderful work, and thank you for sharing with us today. And I know you'll be in the breakout rooms, and folks can ask you questions there when we move to our next section of just sharing with others our successes today. Thank you.
Thank you, panel. And thanks, Bob, so much for you helping us kind of tie all that together.